Merry Christmas, everyone. It's that time of the year, and like I usually do, I am here to watch Christmas specials, some old, some new, some that I have seen, some that I have not seen. It's the season to picking up the cherries, and if you notice, this year I got a few new Christmas ornaments to actually fill up my apartment. Uh, uh, I even got this one. I think you saw in some of my previous vlogs that I decorated for the occasion, and the Christmas trees it had lighting there, so that brought me the idea to dim the lights for this vlog. Let's call this a little bit more kind of like an experiment on the lighting. If this doesn't come out, then I have to adjust some things during editing. But be as it may, it is still feels like a bit of a cozy dim environment, which is perfect if you wanna go color yourself, just relax and watch some Christmas movies that it'll make you really cozy, it'll make you lift the Christmas spirit, or they're gonna make you piss off on how they really misunderstand the holidays, or because they are so clumsy that it turns into a very bad movie. But well, that's just me kind of like being a critic as a hobby. Like I said, it's just a hobby. But anyway, this year on Christmas specials, I was kind of like selective, and I really pick up some few interesting ones. So, what's gonna be my first pick of the Christmas season? Oh yeah, like always, since it's Christmas and it's always about 12. This is why it's always gonna be 12. I really wish I have to reduce it to 10 or it's 5, because picking the Christmas specials is much more harder for me than picking the Halloween ones. But anyway, here we are. What is gonna be my first pick?
I never saw the sun shine so bright, never saw things going so right. Noticing the days hurrying by when you're in love, my heart they fly. Oh,
Lord, help the mister who comes between me and my sister. And Lord, help the sister who comes between me and my man.
The two greatest figures in show business, Bing and Danny, as two ex-GIs who form the perfect partnership. Rosemary and Vera Ellen as the sisters who have them in a spin, with Dean Jagger as the unemployed general they take under their wing.
Apparently, there's still quite a bit about show business I don't understand.
Oh, it'll come to you, sir. Just takes time. We wouldn't be any good as generals.
You weren't any good as privates.
A wonderful story that will warm your hearts, just as the breathtaking scope of a new screen wonder will widen your eyes. White Christmas in VistaVision.
your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white.
I mostly blame global warming because of that, there is now no point on calling something White Christmas. It's been a while since we had a White Christmas in New York. Been years, thanks global warming. But still, that doesn't take out the fact that there is a movie named White Christmas, which is based, of course, on the song. And I wasn't exactly, knowledgeable about this movie. The biggest my interest just came while I was going to watch movie trailers on the movies, and usually, all these AMC exclusive, they say that, hey, we're celebrating the anniversary of this movie or this movie and this movie. Like in this year, I did manage to catch the anniversary of my favorite movie, The Neverending Story, as well as Blazing Saddles. But they did mention White Christmas, and I was I kind of never knew about the existence of this movie, and I was like, you know what? People are saying this is a classic, so let's put it on and let's start it out with that. So from what I could gather, the movie stars a couple of actors who are really big, great singers, and of course we also have Bing Crosby. He is the most notable old school singer that I can at least recognize. But they come up with this movie that it basically is about these couple of soldiers from World War II in which they decide to form a singing partnership after they finish the war. And well, they become successful, then meet a couple of sisters, and they're gonna go. Then they decide to, they stumble into some problems here and there, in which I kind of remember. But the biggest plot that happened is that while going on a tour to New York, they detour to a ski resort in, I think it was Vermont. Let me see here. I got my this time I got my Wikipedia here, because sometimes I have the memory of a goldfish when it's about remembering things. Yeah, in Vermont. They go to Vermont, and that's where they meet their military superior, who he resigned in World War II in order to open a business, a ski resort. But unfortunately, that time of day, there's no snow, and is leading the business into bankruptcy. Yeah, for some reason, saying that out loud kind of makes me feel like, yep, this is a global warming thing. But anyway, they decided to throw him kind of like a surprise show in order to invite all the people who appreciated this guy, in order to put on to move the show here from New York to Vermont, and all of it to honor this guy. And well, this also brings up kind of like the romance between the Bing Crosby character, the character that Bing Crosby's character played with the other woman. What was her name? Rosemary Clooney. That the last name sounds familiar. So while watching the movie in general, this kind of brings out a little bit the pros and the cons about musicals, in which musicals sometimes can either age or not age very well, and this one doesn't feel like it. Although I've been reading some of the things that went on, that they really had to go through rewrites and some other production things, that you can tell that there was some certain ambition, and the music is well done, and you can tell that the singers, they do really well. Sometimes Bing Crosby can manage to deep his voice while singing, in which it kind of is. It's kind of outstanding and unbelievable to see if this is a dub actor or something like that, but no, that's his voice or something like that. He kind of changed his tone when he sings and when he talks. As for the movie itself, yeah, like I said, it's a typical show. It has the story. It has the well-meaning story about two soldiers, and then they meet these women. They decide to put on a show, and basically that's it. And you can tell that there is kind of like the pacing issues that every musical has, in which they just don't go with the musical, and they just stop the story, and they just go on with just singing. The songs are good, but it kind of drags on a little bit, I'll say. And at first I was kind of like into the movie, but then the second half is kind of where it falters, because this is where they wanted to shoehorn in the love story, in which you already know that the love story kind of almost was not gonna work, because the romance between the characters was a little bit forced. it was kind of like, hey, these two, they look together, and now let's push them to become a couple or something like that. Which it can be either cute, but at the same time it can be forced, and you won't believe that this is a romance, especially because that kind of comes up with the Bing Crosby character, that he comes off like a kind of like a guy who never wanted to be married, and then he just got forced into it. But then comes the second half, which things get a little bit outdated, because then comes kind of like a misunderstanding subplot, where she's like, oh, I thought you were better. You care about the money and the fame instead of, goodwill or something like that. And then she kind of abandons and feel like the movie could have been done well if they could communicate better. This is kind of like the thing about misunderstanding, that it can work if they give them kind of like a legit reason that why they couldn't hear each other explain themselves. But this one kind of have the opportunity sometimes, and it gets dumber. The misunderstanding subplot gets really dumb. But at least it kind of gives out kind of like a cute climax, and they did a good job on the White Christmas rendition that they gave out. So anyway, I don't think this is gonna be kind of like a Christmas special that I might go all the way. But as a simple curiosity, I think White Christmas is fine, and it might give you some white. A nice white enjoyment if you can tolerate musicals.
はい、ただいま予約していただきますとイブの日にお引き渡しできますできます、はあ、街はクリスマスカラー一色。行き交う恋人たちは幸せにあふれているというのに、俺たちはイブの日までここでバイトかよ。しょうがないよ、貧乏なんだから。でも何、俺たちより貧乏でしかも4浪確実という友達がいてくれてちょっと幸せかよ。
ケーキ屋でバイトか、慶太郎。余裕だね。
成瀬川、いやこれはどうしてもバイト代が。成瀬川、ありゃなんか冷たい態度。愛想つかされたって感じ。やっぱそう見える。
なるのやつ、何考えとるんや。
What a coincidence that I was talking about forced romance and all that stuff. Although I had to pick this one because, well, from my last video in which it had a little bit of issues that probably people can't see now. I don't know why, or maybe they can. But technically, last year I did tackle on a very, very crappy holiday special called Itsudate My Santa, and so I decided to, well, since I covered that trash, why not I go with his biggest trash, which is none other than Love Hina, the one that put Ken Akamatsu on the map, and to the point that, well, he's an advocate of anime and all things that they do, and, well, he's now a politician. But Love Hina is, like I said, it's his magnum opus, and this is one of those shows in which it's one of those in which when you watch it now, when you get older, it's one of those in which you're like, what was I thinking? Because when you analyze it carefully, that show is awful. This Love Hina is probably one of the most mean-spirited animes that there is, and the sad thing is that Love Hina is technically the archetype of the RM. Of the RM genre, which is basically having one guy or one girl, mostly a guy, who he probably has a chance to date 5 or 6 women or a man, but usually there is one that is kind of like in particular. And honestly, sometimes it kind of feels like a dream come true, but sometimes it's kind of like a nightmare. But I never was a fan of usually of those RMs, because the main protagonist, he always picked the worst. It always picks the worst choice sometimes. In the case of Love Hina, the basic premise of at least the series is that it's centered around this dorky, clumsy kind of guy named Keitaro Urashima, and he's hell bent on trying to enroll into the most prestigious university, which is Tokyo University, because there is a rumor that says that you can fall in love and make your dreams come true, and when you go there, and basically he did promise to a little girl when he was 6 years old. He said that we're both gonna enroll into Tokyo University, and we're gonna live happily ever after. But unfortunately, this guy fails twice, and then the parents get sick of him, and now he gets the opportunity to go to his grandmother's and then aunt's property, which is kind of like this hot spring. It's a hot spring resort where they allow him to stay there as long as he manages it. But unfortunately, this hot spring is also a girls only dorm, in which he gets a lot of stereotypes of all these kind of girls, like the young chipper one, the drunk one, the serious martial artist archetype, the shy one, but most notably the tsundere. The tsundere who she hates him because of his clumsiness, and because he sometimes he's always collapsed to the point that he sees them sometimes naked or in the bedroom them be naked. He's accused of being a pervert, and of course the tsundere she just punched the living freaks out of him. For those that don't know, tsundere is an anime archetype of saying that someone who he hides his feelings with mean spirit, and he'll say that I don't like you, that I hate you, or something like that. And then that character, the tsundere, is other ones, and Naru Harasagawa or something. Naru Harasagawa. The name escapes me, but her name is Naru, and she is indeed one of the most hated characters because she's a total bitch, in which she's always mean-spirited. She doesn't even want to listen to the other guy because most of the things that he does is mostly out of his clumsiness, and he doesn't even have a time to explain. But the other one also doesn't have the spine, to say to stand up, and he just let herself, clobber him, and even for the most little of reasons and all this stuff. And it doesn't help that it grabs an appeal to the anime people, just because it has the wackier style of comedy animation, and they make them kind of like the wacky movement and all this stuff. But this is one of those in which the more you go on, the show gets worse and worse and worse. It has weirdness, but it's the mean spiritedness is kind of pulls out of it. And when it's about the Christmas special that came out, this kind of encompasses everything that is wrong with the show. In which, in this one, it's kind of a little bit more advanced into the story, and they are in which both Keitaro and Naru, they're studying for the Tokyo U exam at Tokyo University, just in case. But of course, it stumbles, on Christmas, and then Keitaro wants to work part-time, but Naru, she's kind of like a total, I don't care, or something like that. She kind of have this bitchy attitude. But then the plot happened when the youngest characters of the series, where they were looking for presents, and they infiltrate Naru's closet in order to find their present, and then they find a present and a letter, and they just don't read it. They just only find the word love on the letter, and then she tells it to the other one and say that hey, Naru's gonna confess up to Keitaro, and then Shinobu spills the bean. Naru thinks that that Naru's gonna confess him, even though they don't deserve each other, or maybe because they're shitheads. Naru gets then then Keitaro gets a broken leg, and then lots of misunderstandings happen. But what pisses me off is that the whole misunderstanding is because some stupid girls, they just don't bother to read the whole letter, and they just say, "Hey, this is for him," just because it says love here. And then when it revealed what was in the letter, it was a whole thing. It just happens to say the word love, nothing else. And so it's something so stupid that it shouldn't happen. And to make things worse, this is a special that could have been easily 22 minutes, but then it kind of drags on for another 22 minutes in which the characters are separated. They're trying to reunite each other, and it goes into a kind of like this awkward long moment in which, hey, let's all meet in Shibuya or something like that, and with the very most unlikable characteristic that you can find. Even the movie kind of what movie? Even the special kind of drops the whole thing when there is a segment where an old man gropes one of the characters in public, and she is the one who gets called upon just because she was defending himself, and the guy doesn't even get arrested for that. He just groped a woman in public, and then also Ken Nakamatsu himself, he appears as a cameo to showcase how much over his head it is, and thinking that this is a great special and a great series, but it isn't. So, but to be fair, it's not as bad as Itsuda de Santa. But still, both specials or everything about Ken Nakamatsu, they hurt even more, just as getting punched by Naru.
Let's all sing while we're talking.
Okay, Donnie.
Why are you out here on Christmas Eve?
Johnny forgot to mail his family's letters to Santa Claus, so we are here to deliver them.
I am the pilot of this airplane, and I'm just along for the ride.
But now we are lost because the address we have is fake.
Fear not, I have the address you seek.
What did you just say? How did you get Santa's address?
I visit Santa every year to offer a helping hand.
Look, Donnie, just show us where Santa lives and I won't have to hurt you.
Only if you sing while you're talking.
Say yes!
Say yes!
Oh, please, Johnny, say yes!
Maybe.
Also, like last year, I cover up the Johnny Bravo Christmas episode from his regular episode. But some people don't know is that there's actually a 22 minute, I think it was 20, but basically a special episode of Johnny Bravo, which is actually centered on Christmas. I don't exactly remember what year that one came out, but considering the art style, this is probably came out after the second or the third season. It was kind of like the season before. I think it was when the series ended and it decided to reboot again, almost between those seasons. But yeah, we all know of course the how can I say the king of vanity, Johnny Bravo, who thinks he wants to revive the Elvis Presley. He wants to impress chicks, but of course his pompous and clumsy nature, it makes him more repellent for a woman instead of attracting them. But and you can tell. But of course, you can tell that Johnny has kind of his peers that actually like him, like his neighbor Susie and his mother, and the few other seasons he also had Carl the nerd and Pops the guy owning the restaurant or something like that, from what I can remember. As for this Christmas episode, well, I gotta say, it is a fun one. I revisited it. Sometimes you might forget it, but there's some other moments that you could that you'll say that, you know what, this is a pretty decent Christmas episode, which is not gonna exactly top the short one that they did on the first season. This one is kind of like a more extended and a kind of like a new adventure in which it all just starts when our character Johnny Bravo realizes that he forgot to mail the letters for Santa. And well, since it is the Christmas season, the mail is busy. The mail is busy, and well, he just must find a way to deliver deliver the letters to Santa, because of course, if Santa doesn't receive those letters, there will be no presents for him or his mother. So along the trip, he is accompanied by Susie, the little girl, in which, for one thing, I'm glad that they kept the design from the first season. During the second and third season, when they have kind of like these new character designs, I didn't like exactly the design that Susie had in that one. She was actually more cute in the first season design, and in this one, and then the later seasons, they decided to return to that one. So that's actually a good one. But of course, she keeps a little bit more the personality of the second and third one, in which she decides to act a little bit less cutesy like the first one, and they gave her a little bit more of an active one. Alongside, and it is technically this wacky journey in which they try to reach to the North Pole, in which there's some things that I don't remember exactly, but let's say that they encounter, well, ugly woman, pretty woman, and all that stuff, and get Johnny getting beat up in the classical sense, and it is kind of hilarious. Even there was even a moment in which they helped some animals on a cargo. What else did they do? They tried to get a plane. They see this guy who they get this plane. They hired this guy. Oh, and and also this episode also has the return of Donny Osmond. I don't know what they came up with Donny Osmond. He's voiced by the actor himself, but he appeared in previous episodes, Johnny Bravo, in which he's kind of like this Mary Poppins, very happy-go-lucky kind of guy that he's kind of like hilarious. But of course, then we got at the end, and I gotta admit that as a little bit rushed, and in terms of the Johnny Bravo thing that it has, the climax is actually kind of touching. There is a lot of touch into it, and even though it kind of makes up a little bit for the attitude of Santa from the other special. I mean, in the other last special, Santa was a little bit salty. And he has kind of like a little bit of an angry attitude also. It's kind of understandable because Johnny technically injured him, and he remembers that, and he got his revenge. But then we get kind of like a very touching moment, and it worked, and everything hunky-dory that I'm not gonna exactly reveal. But anyway, if you like the classic Cartoon Network shows like Johnny Bravo, and you like that one, this is a checkout, and I do recommend it if because, well, it has some good moments. Do it for the ladies. Ha!
One cold night, science and evil collide. Oh yeah. Now, a serial killer is on the loose.
We hadn't even tested the acid on an amoeba, let alone a human cell. This is a disaster. Look, I just saw something that doesn't belong in this world, and it's out there killing my friends. Now tell me what it is. Jack Frost.
Giving cold-blooded a whole new meaning.
Hey, Jack! What? You left the 7-10 split.
Blow me. Jack Frost.
Last year, I covered Michael Keaton, Jack Frost. And you know what? I did this for this specific reason. Because I wanted to touch the one that came before that Michael Keaton Jack Frost, and that is none other than the direct-to-video Jack Frost, the horror version. I do wanted to talk about my that movie because, well, for the ones who knows horror, everybody knows it. And we all know that this movie is awful. The movie is terrible in a lot of ways. The acting abysmal, the specs are abysmal, everything is so bad. But you know what? It became a cult classic because it's not just bad, but it also goes into the more fascinating of badness. So I rewatched it this year, and yes, it's fascinating. It's fascinating how this movie is, and when you watch some of the things that happen behind the scenes about how they wanted to do it, you gotta give them credit that they were trying their damnedest, but they have trouble after trouble after trouble, and one of them is that they were waiting for winter, and of course, winter technically never came. Thank you, global warming. We went from a very nice snowman. Now let's go with a killer snowman, in which this one has a little bit of kind of like this Nightmare on Elm Street kind of plot, in which they capture this serial killer who loves killing, and then of course after an accident, one of the cars that was carrying some chemicals, it douses until the killer, who is aptly named Jack Frost, and of course he melts and turns into a, in a way, I don't even know if I want to call him a snowman, because most of the effects, it really looks like styrofoam, or sometimes they use oven mitts to the effects, and it's just hilarious. I think I made this comparison to another movie, but it's almost like if you're watching Paranorman, and you know that in Paranorman, when he was watching this awful movie in which you can notice the effects, that is that kind of movie, and boy, that they overact. It's overacting to the sense that it's both painful, but if you're kind of like in the right mood, you can find some kind of enjoyment to this whole stupidity that it goes. I mean, they go with the whole thing in which everyone acts even like idiots. Some of the physics, they don't make sense. Like, for example, for some reason, one kid who is a bully. He just gets pushed by the snowman with a light tap, and then he falls on the floor. And then somehow another kid that is riding a sleigh, but not going downhill, and for some reason the sleigh can ride on a flat surface, and it goes like that, and then somehow his head is just flying, and you can even notice that he was just tapped. That's how it's so idiotic that it is. Oh yeah, this movie also has a little bit of a revenge plot in which Jack Frost is looking for the guy who arrested him. Even there's a Happy Revenge plot in which the guy is like, oh, I'm gonna kill you all, or something like that. And yeah, Jack Frost also tries so hard being Freddy Krueger by showing one-liners that is so bad. Even although I do agree that some of the jokes are really cringy. And yeah, I did mention about the special effects, of course, that they're pretty bad, like the ones that I said. But honestly, there is one that is actually pretty decent, and that is when Jack Frost gets exposed to the chemical, and this is kind of like the goriest moment of the movie, and this is where the effects comes as close as decent. And so yeah, you have to be kind of like in a mood to enjoy that. And yeah, let me go also with the elephant in the room that yes, there is a particular scene in which it involves Jack the Snowman doing his bit with a woman in a bathtub, and there is an implication that he stick his carrot where you should never put. That's kind of like that's the best way I can describe it without going kind of like PG. And so yeah, I just kind of like watch it, and it was more mesmerized about the whole thing. And in a way, I do kind of wish that this movie has a documentary about how it was done. I want to know a lot about it. I mean, when I went to Contropolis this year, I even saw the Jack Frost mask in it. And it's just pure styrofoam. And it is big, let me tell you. So I can't hold them about their ambitions and what they were trying to do. And yeah, the documentary is nice to see what their people are going through. Although it is also going to be sad because one of them, coincidentally, also ironically, he unfortunately passed away by an avalanche. But okay, let's not get too much into detail. But still, if you're kind of like in the mood to watch something stupid on Christmas, well, there it is. You got Jack Frost, in which you have the choice between you want to see a very campy, kind of lame-ish family film involving a snowman, or a very campy, cheesy, kind of incompetent horror movie. And guess what? There's a sequel to this one. I might gonna check it out next year.
Pinky?
Oh, Brian, look! I'm writing a letter to Santa! Brian?
You are under my control. Can you hear me?
No!
I'll take that as a yes. I order you to cluck like a chicken.
Moo!
A chicken.
All right. Cluck, cluck, cluck.
Good. Now, you are standing on hot sand. Stop. Now, impersonate William F. Buckley. Oh. Impersonate Regis Philbin.
I'm out of control!
Yes! Success!
This one was also in my radar because during my whole life, ever since the Pinky and the Brain show came out, a lot of people were always saying about how good the Christmas special it is, and how many people are touched by it, and how great it is. Not me. I absolutely hate it. Yes, I admit it. I hate the Pinky and the Brain Christmas special. No taking back. I hated the first time I saw it many years ago, and then I kind of here's the curious thing why I came back for it. On Facebook, some guy just put on a comment saying that this is one of the greatest moments, and it always break my heart and all this stuff. But I had a little bit of an opinion, and I kind of like respectfully said that I disagree. There's some problems that I'm gonna go into it, and I kind of like disagree. And then the guy kind of acted a little bit, how can I say, very defensive to it, and he was like, no, he thought you didn't get the point. Are you kind of like a Scrooge or something like that? And I was like, dude, I was just kind of like claiming his opinion. And then this guy removed the Facebook post in order to remove those comments, and he reposted again. I'm not going to exactly say who, but I don't remember. You know what? I don't even remember who it was. But it kind of gave me a little bit of thinking that, am I was really the jerk? Am I missing something about the Pinky and the Brain's Christmas special? So this year, I decided to rewatch it after many years. And guess what? Like I said, I still hate it. I don't hate it as much as I used to, and I don't hate it as much as, the Danny Phantom Christmas tree, which is still one of my worst one. But I will say that the Christmas and Pinky and the Brains is probably one of my top 10 worst Christmas specials that there is. For those who doesn't know, of course, it's the comedy series about two laboratory mice. One is a genius and the other one insane, in which we got the Brain, who every episode is him trying to take over the world. But of course, he always does it with the aid of his very crazy, but, well, I wouldn't say crazy, but he's more like a dim-witted, clumsy mouse named Pinky. And well, every episode is just them, going that and failing. And while I do like the series in general, it never kind of touched me on. Maybe because the tone is a little bit more dry compared to other wackier shows like Animaniacs or Tiny Toons Adventure. Their dryness is probably what kind of put me off. But don't get me wrong, there are some episodes that I really like. But the Christmas special, even when I saw it for the first time, I wasn't very keen of it. But here's the thing: the episode centers that the Brain newest plan to take over the world is that he's gonna infiltrate Santa Claus workshop so he can sneak in some dolls that they have the Brain into it, and with it it's gonna be collected by it's gonna be shared among all the people in the world, because Santa's gonna give them as gifts. But little that they know is that the doll actually has a mechanism where the Brain is gonna radio signal everyone so he can brainwash them. And it seems fine enough, but here is where I started hating the special, and that is Pinky himself. During this whole special, Pinky is acting really like a spoiled brat, because he has this subplot in which he wants to take the opportunity to give Santa the letter, and he's just like, I'm gonna give Santa the letter. I must give that Santa. It's very important and all this stuff, and he acts kind of like a spoiled brat. And honestly, at the first moments, this is when it kind of shows a little bit how some clever moments. There are some jokes that I find it funny. Also, it's still kind of in this Warner Brothers kind of thing, kind of dry humor. I wasn't kind of like exactly buying it, but something about Pinky is there are times in which Pinky really gets me on my nerves sometimes. I don't know what it is, but maybe. But sometimes, kind of like in the comedy and all this stuff. But Pinky here, honestly, the more you see about the show, he's more of a hindrance more than a helping hand. But okay, I can get over that. It's kind of like a comedy and all this stuff. But what I don't accept is that during the climax of this episode is that he realizes that he missed the opportunity to give Santa his letter, and he just begins to cry like a baby. And say that I didn't get my sense of Santa and something like that, and the brain was almost going to succeed on his thing, and the brain was actually had it up to here and say that Pinky, just grow up, just grow up. I don't care. I just want to take over the world. Yeah, he acted a little bit mean-spirited, but considering that he had frustration of taking over the world, I mean, it's kind of understandable. But and Pinky he cared more about giving the letter to Santa and all this stuff. And then it came the moment in which it touched people's hearts. But in my opinion, is where people, they miss the point. It is after Brain takes the letter and sends Pinky, to activate the device. Payne takes the opportunity to read the letter because he's like, okay, what he wrote. The letter in itself, not gonna lie, that it's kind of touching, but unfortunately, it misses the point. Basically, the letter says that Pinky he doesn't want any gifts. He just wants Santa to give everything to the Brain. He wants Santa to give the world to him because he's hardworking. And a lot of people doesn't respect him and all this stuff. The whole thing saying that I have a lot of respect to this guy, which unfortunately his hard work is never rewarded, but he just wants to kind of like take over the world. And so please, I don't ask anything but give him the world. And of course, this makes the Brain have a change of heart, and instead of going to taking over the world, he's like, "Merry Christmas, everyone!" And then he destroys the device. As touching as many people sees this, here's what I find the problem. That is a very selfish thing about Pinky. And what I hate the most about it is that this is more having a wishful thinking, relying on someone to give a gift to someone instead of doing yourself the favor. Especially considering the history that the show has, because Pinky just wanted to ask Santa to give him the gift, and honestly, it could have worked better if Pinky didn't act like such a spoiled brat, and instead of relying on Santa Claus, he just said that if Santa Claus can't do this, I'll do my best this time to help the Brain to take over the world. So it's primarily the execution that it didn't sit me on. And at the end, the whole thing feels shallow and in a way undeserving. And that nothing is gonna change, especially in the next episode where they're gonna still take over the world and Pinky's gonna be kind of like the same idiotic guy. It mostly wanted to have the Brain change and didn't make Pinky change. So that kind of made Pinky more of a shallow character, more like a comic relief than just a character. So I know that I'm sounding like I am overanalyzing, but honestly, these are the things that came even to my mind even when I was a child or while watching this. So honestly, he was about to take over the world. He was gonna get it. So, and just Pinky, because of his act of selfishness and spoiled brattery, even for the sake of another one, it's still selfish, and it did still cost him everything. So I think Pinky is kind of like the ungrateful one. But if you like it, I'm not gonna blame you. But but still, for me, Pinky and the Brain didn't took over my world.
Happy birthday! Hey, I said my first words. But snowmen can't talk. All right, come on now. What's the joke? Could I really be alive? I mean, I can make words. I can move. I can juggle. I can sweep. I can count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 6, 8. Well, I can count to 5. What do you know? I'm even ticklish. In fact, I'm all living. I am alive. What a neat thing to happen to a nice guy like me.
Like every year, I pick up at least one Rankin Bass production. And this year I chose Frosty the Snowman. The classical tale of the snowman that comes to life. He makes children happy, and in the case of this story, it has this washed-up magician who he finds that the hat that brought Frosty back to life be magical. Although it comes a little bit questionable, saying that the guy had this hat all along, and then suddenly it's magical. It's magical, and then of course Frosty is basically melting because he is made of the snow, and he alongside a little girl, what was her name again? Just in case Karen, I think she was called. Yes, Karen. Poor girl, especially in this day and age, having this name. Okay, I'm not gonna go into that. They have this journey to go to the North Pole, where probably is gonna of course, he can survive. And I don't watch that special too often, because sometimes I think I have a kind of like a selection of better ones sometimes. Although I revisit this one a little bit once in a while, and this year was kind of like the perfect opportunity to watch it a little bit more into detail. And you know what? It is as charming as many of those it is. The animation works fine. Rankin Bass has kind of like this unique style of animation, and some people don't know much, but most of the animation of the Rankin Bass stuff, they're actually co-produced, even in Japan, and some of those companies. Let me see if I can check here where it was animated. I think it was Toei. Oh yeah, this is the one that I remember. Most of the animation was actually produced by Mushi Production, which this gives me high respect to that. For those who doesn't know, Mushi Production was an animated Japanese animation company that was founded by, of course, my inspiration, Osamu Tezuka. You know that I love Osamu Tezuka. I should have known that there was something very likable about this. Although unfortunately that company went bankrupt, and of course now it now made a new one with another name, but it kind of gives out a little bit of an interesting insight about Frosty the Snowman. As for the story itself, well, it's simple, it's charming, sometimes a little bit nonsensical considering the hat. Frosty is likable enough. The first time I saw it, I never expected Frosty is saying "Happy Birthday." But now, you know what? It kind of comes in hindsight that I'm talking about a living snowman, considering that I was talking about a killer snowman a few minutes ago. What? I think I should have started with this one instead of the other one. But okay, this one we got the more likable one, and the story and the pacing is short enough, it's sweet enough, and but here's also a little bit of an interesting thing about it. It's about the Karen character. I was surprised that this Karen was actually has two voice actresses. The first one was of course voiced by June Foray, and then in the later areas, and even the one that I saw, she's voiced by Suzanne Davidson. So that kind of so far I haven't seen exactly the reason why they changed her voice and during nowadays. But the more so after watching the special and then realizing that June Foray was the original voice actor of the Karen, then I kind of a little bit see why. Maybe it's not the official one, but the point is that June Foray was a talented voice actress, but comparing to the new one, the new voice actress, the one that's showcased in the later areas, at least she sounds like the child, like the little girl. Well, June Foray's voice, well, it's not bad, but you can notice that she slips a little bit at the Rocky voice from Rocky and Bullwinkle. And but anyhow, yeah, we got it. Like I said, it's charming going through the character going to this journey to reach the North Pole, and then we got this magician who, at first I was funnily saying that, dude, he's kind of right. It's his hat. But of course the kids tell that he dropped it and all stuff, but he still had the right to get it back a little bit. But then when I'm watching it, he really did some despicable things, and he gets a little bit what he deserves. But thankfully, yeah, at least they weren't too harsh enough, at least to give him kind of like a change of heart into it. So yeah, that's pretty much I have to say about Frosty the Snowman. So anyway, that's I don't have much to say. It's a very charming Rankin Bass production. So with that said, happy birthday.
Every holiday season, there's one toy everyone has to have.
I want the Turbo Man action figure with the arms and legs that move, and the rocket roaring jetpack, and the boomerang shooter.
Getting it is every child's dream.
Whoever doesn't can be a real loser.
Finding it.
You got the doll, right?
Is this father's nightmare.
I'll get that toy. I promise.
Whoa! Nothing like waiting until the last minute, Howard, sir.
Especially on Christmas Eve.
Turbo Man, you're mine!
They're all gone.
These two are looking for a Turbo Man.
Where's your Christmas spirit?
The last one just left. Now, it's two fathers.
This is war.
One mission.
Oh, poor baby.
And every man for himself.
I'm thinking maybe, we could join up as a team. Like Starsky and Hutch.
We're on late delivery of Turbo Man. That toy works. Let's go.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. Sinbad.
I work for the post office, and I'm unstable. Tell him.
This man is totally insane.
Thank you.
Christmas comes but once a year.
Jingle all the way.
I had to go there eventually. When it's about Christmas, a lot of times people think about Jingle All the Way, the holiday special about that stars Schwarzenegger and Sinbad. Also, it had Jake Lloyd. What was the name of that woman who? What was the name of that woman? Rita Wilson, and also it had Robert Conrad. Marty Mull is there, Harvey Corbin is there, Phil Hartman is there, Curtis Armstrong is there. They're kind of like a big celebrities people that they have, but it's mostly Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sinbad. So yeah, Jingle All the Way is a cult. It developed a cult classic to many people, and I decided to sit and watch it with some of my friends to see if something holds up because interesting history about me and the movie itself is that when I was a child, I was actually kind of like enthralled to watch this movie, and I almost never seen it completely. Some things happen. Then I saw the Nostalgia Critic review in which I could see that, wow, that movie doesn't look too good. But then, of course, I've been hearing a lot of things about this movie, and then I watch it with my friends, and you know what? I think I was fated to not like this movie when I grew up, and because this movie is bad. But just like Jack Frost, that one can be fascinating bad to the point that I can tell that there is a semblance of riffability. This is a movie that you can make fun of because of how bad it is. Although it's not exactly kind of like the worst thing ever, but you can tell that this is honestly, the best way I can describe it, that this movie has kind of like the same thing that I have with Mrs. Doubtfire. Mrs. Doubtfire is actually one of those movies that the more I see it, it gets worse and worse and worse, and now I hate Mrs. Doubtfire. I'm not gonna go too much into it, but Jingle All the Way, you can tell how bad it is because the sense that, in a way, it kind of tries to take itself seriously about the problem of commercialism, but but the message is not exactly well established, and it really gives you a very, very corny one. So, for starters, let's say that the movie, like I say, it starts Schwarzenegger having in this typical 90s archetype of, the workaholic father who is not exactly with his son, and the son resents him even though the father works hard to give them this really, really, really amazing house. And, well, in order to buy the forgiveness of the son say that, I want the hottest toy, which is in this case the action figure of a superhero known as Turbo Man. And well, he decides to make some last minute shopping, and unfortunately, because it's the hottest toy, it has kind of like this tickle me Elmo syndrome, as that Black Friday syndrome, where everyone wants it and they go tooth and nail to fight over it, especially when Schwarzenegger he stumbles with Sinbad, a postman who also wants to get the gift, and they have many encounters. They have problems, but it's mostly Schwarzenegger going through a lot of mean-spirited people, including and of course not only he has to deal with a toy that his son actually wants him to say that you're gonna prove that you love me by getting me the Turbo Man, but he has also very obliviously doesn't know that his wife, who is also mean-spirited, his wife and him are oblivious that his neighbor, Phil Hartman, is creepily stalking her and trying to get him by being kind of like the most irritatingly nice guy and saying on his face, "Ooh, I love those cookies," and all this stuff. And of course, also he has to deal with an old policeman and all this stuff. And this movie, this is one of those that when you grow up and you at least certify your brain at least on observational skills, you can tell that this movie is really, really mean-spirited and awful. Everything is kind of like cynical, and everyone kind of like act like want to make the cartoons. And I did say many times that when you kind of act like a fool in live action, you don't see yourself like a cartoon. You're more seeing like an idiot, like a fool, and it doesn't concentrate because real life we see it every day. Especially when like one guy, for example, it kind of cements one moment in which Schwarzenegger they say, "Hey, hey, I'm looking for the Tourman doll," and then the clerk is like, you don't treat your customers like that. Not even for the sake of comedy. It makes it irritating. It makes it irritating. Even the execution, they try to make it so childish, and everyone is kind of like so unlikable. and I can tell Schwarzenegger tries his damnedest, and even Sinbad. And I will say that Sinbad is probably the only one who actually comes up as the most interesting character, the one with the most background. But now we have to go with Schwarzenegger and his spoiled brat of a kid with Jake Lloyd. I know that Jake Lloyd, poor kid, he was a Star Wars kid and everyone bullied him and all this stuff. But you know what? It comes with the territory. Deal with it, kid. And you know what? You don't have to just blame Star Wars, because that movie also doesn't give him any favors. He was a terrible actor in this one. He was awful. I know that I shouldn't bash the kid, but you must say for what it is. Don't exactly just give him the trophy of try hard or something like that, because this spoils him and doesn't motivate him. You have to tell him for what it is and let him grow up with that. You know, the life of acting is not exactly thing like that, and it goes into, and this movie kind of goes into pratfalls and cynicism, and I do have a friend of mine that kind of say that, well, that's kind of the point of the movie. This movie is kind of like a satire to commercialism, but I can get it, but at least there are better executions about that one. It's especially with a lot of mean-spirited people, and it comes up with a very unsatisfying climax that it also that honestly it doesn't work, and even the Turbo Man doll doesn't look like it was kind of like great. Even the show kind of looked like a very knockoff of Power Rangers. But I will say that there is one joke that is actually really good. The very best joke that happens is that they cause a lot of terrorism on a radio station, and of course Sinbad, being a postman, he just tries to trick everyone and say, hey, here's I got a bomb, and of course at first it was a fake out, and then he does it again. He tries to fake out everyone, hey, I got a bomb in this package, and well. The old cop is like, you've been duped. And then he opened the bag, and bam, it was a real bomb. That one, it works because it has a great execution, especially when it ends with, well, it almost ends with Sinbad, Sinbad, he was like, that was a bomb? This is a sick world we went in, it's sick people. That was actually the best moment of this. And of course, let's not forget that the nostalgia critic made us cement into our heads the accent of Schwarzenegger, asking for the cookie to creepy Phil Hartman. Yeah, Phil Hartman, bless his soul, and is that, man, that he was very creepy on this one. And the stupidity of not knowing how slimy he was, it kind of turns into irritating. So, yeah. Honestly, I can see why this movie can at least fall into the category of guilty pleasure, but I don't think that. But honestly, this movie deserves to be more criticized, and honestly, yeah, for a guilty pleasure, much like Jack Frost, it kind of comes like an interesting watch. So, but let's face it, just put your cookie down and accept that was a terrible movie.
It's like living a storybook adventure beyond your wildest imagination. From the North Pole of Fantasyland comes a feature-length fable with the most enchanting characters in the whole wide world, headed by the white-whiskered fellow who's the granddaddy of them all. Now, a magic motion picture transports you to an over-the-rainbow land, past the doors of Santa's towering castle and the strange, mysterious, all-seeing eye, into a fantastic crystal laboratory filled with weird and wonderful secrets no one has ever seen before. Come face to face with the devil himself, a mischievous demon determined to mess things up as much as he can.
It's yours. Nobody saw you take it, Lupita. They have more and they won't miss it. What does one little doll matter, don't you see?
Leave it to that devilish trickster to sidetrack Santa up a tree. Watch the jolly hijinks of Santa Claus as he decides to fight fire with fire.
Oh ho, a cannon.
Ouch! Oh! Oh!
Sleep now, darling. Sleep now and you will see. Maybe when you wake up, you'll find it, darling.
You'll see more wonders than you can wave a wand at as a dazzling panorama unfolds before your startled eyes.
Looking at very old Christmas movie that people can easily make fun of, I decided to go to the other route of that Santa Claus movie that it is on par on the campy weirdness, bad B-list movie kind of film, much like Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. And that one I'm going with Santa Claus. The 1959, I see it there, 1959 Mexican movie, in which many people, they make fun of it. They say that, yeah, it is a bad movie, and, well, we make fun of it, especially it become popularized by, of course, MST3K make fun of it. There's even a review that James Rolfe did. Actually, that James Rolfe video was my introduction to this film. Of the Mexican films, it was a little bit no stranger to me. Even though, weirdly enough, this movie didn't. I don't think that it kind of show, at least in my country, Ecuador. Even though we did have our share of Mexican films, ranging from movies with cantinflas or soap operas, and of course the Chespirito things. So this year I was thinking that, okay, I once stumbled into Santa Claus Conquered the Martians, and I did find that movie was boring without the riff. So I decided to watch this one without the riff. But here's the additional thing that I did. I decided to watch the movie in its original language, the Spanish version. So I was not going for the quality of the dubbing, and instead I was going for what the movie sounds genuinely. And in a way, I'm kind of glad that the movie is almost untouched in terms of graphics and a little bit of dialogue. But what surprises me is that in execution, the Spanish version of this movie, Santa Claus, the 1959 version, is not exactly as terrible as people think about it. And I think it's mostly the kind of like the dubbing execution that they did. I think that when people decided to dub this movie, they went a little bit Shakespearean. They tried to make a little bit of a mockery, and it's kind of understandable because, in a sense, that movie's still bonkers. And it's still a bonkers of a movie, but somehow when you hear how the actors play and the intention that this movie has, there is something, how can I say, something sincere that they were trying. Because, yeah, it has some bonkers things, some curse things, and some things that can give nightmare fuel. But when you see it, there is some intention. Basically, this movie is what, of course, his alternate title says. It's basically Santa Claus versus the devil himself, in which it's basically Christmas, Santa Claus, watching his boys and girls, and they kind of make like this lore that he lives kind of like in a planet, almost like a god, observing the children with his weird machinery that really looks like one of those Christian things, but But keep in mind that we're talking about Mexico, and this is a low-budget film, and we're not talking even kind of like a bigger, higher budget that the United States had, and considering also the time period that the Mexico was kind of doing movies like that to go on with the budget. But continuing on, he just watched them. We saw the perspective of three group of children specifically. And he, instead of elves, his helpers are children from all over the world in their stereotypes. Stereotypes are not offensive, just in case, not offensive. It's almost like he has his own small world after all. And he even has Merlin, of all people, as kind of like his James Bond kind of gadget giver, because he has, for example, a flower that when you sniff it, he can make himself invisible and other gadgets. And while he does do that, since he also had to deal that Lucifer himself, he sends one of his minions, a little devil named Pitch, to go to influence people to do bad things, to be a naughty boy, and also toward Santa Claus when Christmas comes. Here's the interesting thing. I named him Pitch because that's what the English version named him. But I never expected that his name in Spanish is actually Precio. Precio meaning kind of like price. Or maybe they just wanted to put it like his name is like Desprecio. Desprecio means kind of like despicable. And they just call kind of like a death. And of course, the devil has to do his evil deeds because if he doesn't do right, he's going to be punished by eating ice cream. And of course, the movie then centers on Santa Claus, doing all his things. But at the same time, we also have some focus on three groups of children. One is a rich kid who feels lonely because his parents are not with him. It's just that they don't love him. They're just too in love with each other that they kind of forget. Then he also centers on three naughty children who they are technically the victims of the bad influences of the devil. And a very little poor girl who wants a doll and all this stuff. And yeah, like I said, a lot of the stuff are kind of like weird, cursed, a little bit campy in itself. But if you watch again the Spanish version and how the acting it is, and you hear them in their a little bit more of a genuine acting, then you kind of get kind of like a new perspective. And especially when you get to the subplots of the rich kid and the poor girl, those moments are actually genuinely sweet. It's very heart touching, and you can tell even the guy who plays Santa Claus, despite the weirdness that it is, he's really charming, and he really does a good job as a very heartwarming Santa Claus, despite the whole thing. And the movie, it has this childlike nature that people kind of misunderstand, and it tries its best to it kind of tries to bring its childlike imagination to come to life in the sense of Santa Claus, especially with the with the subplot with the rich kid, and especially the little poor girl. And that one actually is heartbreaking, especially one kind of comes like the mother, in which well, it is a little bit clumsily that they wanted to show mix up the Jesus thing. But remember that this is usually at that time period, I think most of Mexicans, they have kind of like a higher faith on Christianity, and they have kind of like higher hopes, and so it's a little bit kind of like shoehorned in a little bit, but in the terms of trying some innocence into it, it kind of worked. Like I said, especially the mother of the poor girl, when there is a kind of like a moment in which her acting is so good in Spanish that the dubbing kind of doesn't make justice to it. It tries sometimes, but maybe the dubbing came out as unintentionally campingly hilarious. So in all, if you are blessed to know Spanish, at least I could say that check out the Spanish version at least out of curiosity. And if you wanted to kind of make fun of it, the English version kind of acts like some laughs, or sometimes you can watch it at Mystery Science Theater. It's just me kind of sharing kind of like an odd perspective that of a movie that I never expected, and I had some different opinion like many.
How did you know all that?
I didn't. I was just following you.
You
I
were
didn't.
following me?
Yeah.
Oh, I messed up in the middle there.
Yeah, tap is new for me. It's
Yeah,
a very expressive medium. What is all of this?
I'm your ghost of Christmas present.
Like a Christmas carol? What do you think I'm going to be all intrigued by what's behind the door?
Not even a little bit curious?
Damn it!
I'll be straight with you guys. F this movie. I didn't like that one. Honestly, I know it wasn't my intention of having that this year I have a list of mostly movies that I didn't like. I mean, how many I didn't like so far? There's Love, Hina, Christmas. Okay, Jack Frog was bad, but I didn't hate it or something like that. The Jingle All the Way, Pinky the Brain Christmas, and now this one, Spirited. F this movie. I hated this movie. People are trying their best to make it a cult classic, and this is probably kind of like the most current that I have. This one came out, I think it was 2 years ago. It came out of Apple Plus, and I had a friend who was so eager to show this movie because he said that he really loved it or something like that, and I just kept watching it, and I don't know, there was something about it that kind of rubbed me in the wrong way. Even though we have kind of like actors like Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds, and I kind of have a big respect to Ryan Reynolds. And I gotta admit that at first I was like, okay, I've seen a little bit of flags here and there, and then the movie kind of begins to pick up a little bit, but then it plummets. It plummets. And I can officially say that this is one of those horrible movies that I have seen. It's so bad that normally I usually rewatch most of those Christmas specials in order to get kind of like a perspective. Spirited, I saw it last year, and I didn't even touch it. I wanted to talk about it and only saw it on the Wikipedia to refresh me a little bit of my memory, because I didn't want to see it again. I don't want to touch it. I know that it's so unprofessional, but I don't know. I hated this movie. So, as far from what I can remember, the movie stars Will Ferrell, in which he starts out the Ghost of Christmas Present, because yeah, it's kind of like Christmas Carol thing, in which more modernized, and in which they form this society, or kind of like this afterlife organization, in which they go through past, present, and future to other people, doing Christmas caroling in different times and all this stuff. And Christmas Present, I think he kind of wants to keep his job, and you know what? Let me refresh even a little bit. Here and there, just in case. The Christmas Present, they say that he must retire, but he doesn't want to do it because apparently he kind of loves his job, and he just wants to do it, and then he finds out kind of like a big candidate to reform probably the most despicable guy in Present, which is kind of like this CEO who is played by Ryan Reynolds. You know what? Let me. He's a media consultant, and just rewatch it because I like I said, I don't want to go back to this movie. There's something about this movie that don't make me want to go back. In which Ryan Reynolds played this media consultant, and they find that he's unredeemable, and so he's unredeemable, but he basically didn't kill anyone or something like that. And of course, the Will Ferrell character say that, hey, he's my ticket for something that I kind of don't understand. They tried to redeem the guy, and then it kind of turned into a musical. Then of course we got kind of like the subplot in which Will Ferrell kind of falls in love with Octavia Spencer, who is kind of like the Bob Cratchit of this movie. And then of course there's kind of like this subplot of Ryan Reynolds' niece, who she's kind of a little bit of a class president, and he's kind of persuading her to drop her little. I think that she had kind of like a dirt on a good kid, and that apparently the kid is gonna be cyberbullied to the point that he's probably gonna commit suicide, and it kind of has this kind of like Christmas carols kind of thing, you know, with the musical and everything. And at first I was kind of like into it for a while, and then of course they kind of put kind of like this plot in which the Ghost of Christmas Present, apparently he was the Will Ferrell character was originally Ebenezer Scrooge, and which kind of goes a little bit into Ghostbusters territory, in which apparently the Christmas Carol thing was real, and so kind of the lore kind of falls into itself. Although I do admit that there is a catchy song which is called "Good Afternoon." Although some people nowadays they kind of they kind of tease me with this one, and every time I bring out my distaste of this movie, and because you can tell that this movie, despite some of the limitations that it has, it's still a little bit too overly long. It's even so overly complicated. It doesn't even work as a Christmas Carol, to the point that I don't consider this a Christmas Carol movie. Even I found that Will Ferrell and Octavia Spencer had no chemistry on their romance, and the movie also has some some plot holes that I kind of don't understand, and there's some. It feels like a Hallmark movie that it tries too hard, and I know that they try their best, and you know, with Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds doing their best and all this stuff, and for a moment, I was fine. I was like, okay, I'm not exactly kind of like very fond of this movie, but still I can see why some people like it. But then the ending happened. I'm not gonna regret spoiling it, because you have to know that this movie has probably one of the worst movie endings I have ever seen. I hated this ending. That was the most cynical, most mean-spirited, most Scroogey, and unnecessary movement of an ending that I have ever seen. In which we got this sing and dance. Everything is kind of like going kind of like fine. Even Ryan Reynolds kind of like redeemed himself. Will Ferrell was kind of like, yeah, I'm fine and all this stuff. I'm finally gonna retire and all this stuff. And it feels like everything is kind of like getting redeemed, and you know, learning their lives. Each one kind of like they see each other and kind of like empathize, to the point that I was like, I don't get it. And they even kind of like have this power of time stopping, of time stopping all this stuff. And then the Ryan Reynolds character, who finally, you know, redeem himself and finally find a way that he's gonna do good stuff in life and all this stuff. He gets unceremoniously hit by a truck, and he gets killed. And then he turns into the Ghost of Christmas Present, and apparently he's happy being dead. it's not like the situation of a scary movie in which you just see you get this character getting run over a car, it's funny and all this stuff. This one, it took it a little bit too seriously, and then boom, you get hit by a truck and you kill the character, and then they celebrated his death. It's almost like this whole redeeming plot was meaningless. Oh, now he redeemed himself because now he worked happily on this being the ghost of Christmas. And we never even say that the niece were like, oh my God, my uncle was killed and he was redeeming himself. F that. F that. You know what? I don't want to talk about this movie. Good afternoon.
Ebenezer Scrooge has been keeping Christmas his own special way ever since Charles Dickens created him 127 years ago in A Christmas Carol. Now, Cinema Center Films has taken this beloved story of the meanest man in the world and made it into a new musical delight called Scrooge.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's the nicest thing that anyone's ever done for me. I makes a double Dutch. But my delight is such, I feel as if a losing war's been won for me. And if I had a cannon, I would fire it to add a sort of celebration touch.
You don't believe in me, do you?
No, I don't.
Why do you doubt the evidence of your own eyes?
You're an hallucination. Probably brought on by an undigested bit of beef, or a flub of mustard, or a crumb of cheese, or an old potato.
What the dickens have they done to Scrooge? They've made a musical for the pure joy of it.
Okay, now for the real and better Christmas Carol story. And like I said, I pick one every year. And this year I picked the 1970 Christmas Carol version, which is called Scrooge. It's technically known also like the Christmas Carol musical. Although some of them are musical, and others that the story, and there's no point of talking. Ebenezer Scrooge. He's the miser. He doesn't like Christmas and all stuff. The story over and over and over again. So what's the point? So usually it's always about the execution. So the 1970 is my choice, and I never watched that one. But people say it has some good things about it, especially because I think it's come from the director who also made Oliver, a movie that I also haven't seen, but I know the reputation that it has as a musical. So I decided to watch it, and you know what? I can see why people like it, because it has the charming properties and does a lot of things right, and it has some good tidbits as a musical, and the music is actually pretty good, especially the most infamous "Thank you very much, thank you very much. This is the nicest thing you have ever done for me." I'm not a good singer. I can't even remember most of the lyrics, but so I can see why this version, the one with that stars Albert Finney, is a memorable for many, and you know what, it does things fine in a way. I do have a little bit of a nitpick, the introduction movie, the intro with the title card and everything. The title card basically spoils the entire story. Although I don't know if it could be called a spoiler when everybody knows how the story goes. But they're good drawings. Not gonna go too much into detail. Okay, some other fine detail that I can say is that it does have this. Like I said, it is well done in its production, the songs, how the character acts. I will say that Albert Finney as Ebenezer Scrooge, he does a fine job. He's not exactly kind of like the best Scrooge, but he brings out some he brings out for what it is. It's not something that you're gonna exactly memorize. Just checking some things out, something like that before I slip out. I did actually like that during one of the songs we actually see Ebenezer Scrooge doing his what he does. He goes around. He goes around collecting people. What was it? What was his job? I would say he came to collect the payment, and you can actually see how scrupulous he is, how mean, and why people don't like him. Because this is something that many people not exactly kind of see. It's just saying, because we see him, I don't want to share my riches and all that stuff. But so I like that they put this perspective that if this is kind of like their life of him, hounding you, so he can pester you and saying that I'm here to collect my money. If you don't give me my money today, you're gonna have to pay interest, but in really scrupulous interest, and he doesn't care if you're having trouble with your business or anything. I like that thing. What else there is? We got David Collins playing Bob Cratchit, and we also, he's fine, not too much, and of course Alec Guinness plays Jacob Marley. Most of the, I will say that most of the thing of the story progression it follows as it is with some songs, which honestly it is kind of like a nice. It is kind of like a nice, how can I say, contrast that you get two sets of musicals, and one of them, of course, with the Stingiest Man in Town, that it has its own collection of songs. This one also has its own collection of songs. Some of them are actually pretty good. Although this one I will at least a little bit nitpick that the future section is a little bit over the top. Because it kind of wanted to went a little bit the extra mile, and it didn't concentrate kind of like the most important about how it affects people on the living world after Ebenezer Scrooge's death. It kind of took itself a little bit more time saying that, okay, when Scrooge dies, he's going to hell, and they expand that thing in which he really goes to hell. And while it is admirable what they did to the hell section, I think that it could have shortened it a little bit on that area. But nevertheless, I will say that it won me over. So the 1970 Christmas Carol, or in this case Scrooge, it was an interesting and a good Christmas Carol edition that I saw. Of course, much better than Spirit. Good afternoon.
Oh, clerk. Yes, sir? Look, I'm the fellow who was here just a little while ago. I bought that $40 wallet. Yeah? Well, I'd like to change the card, please.
But mister, I already got it wrapped with ribbon and tinsel and little bells and holly.
Yeah, I know, but I'm sorry, but look, I'm sorry, but you'll have to unwrap it, because I want to change the card.
But mister, look,
please, I'm a customer. Now, unwrap it.
Oh, all right. But it's so pretty. It's a dirty shame.
I know.
Such a nice ribbon and everything.
Yeah, I know. I just have to change the card.
Yeah, I like the card you had in
Yeah, but I have to change it.
I thought it was very witty.
All right. Now, this is much better. To Don, a very Merry Christmas from Jack. Huh? All right, now, put this in with the gift and wrap it.
Yeah, I'll wrap it. Good. A very original card to Don, a very Merry Christmas.
I was actually struggling to fill out this list on Christmas specials, and trust me, like I said, I wasn't exactly kind of like my intention to find Christmas specials that I didn't like to fill out this year. I just wanted to have kind of like a fair shot on everyone. That is until I went to a streaming in Discord with this group named Freeservision. It's kind of like a small group of friends that they just reunite, and they have their own kind of like YouTube channel that they're trying their best, to construct. They have interesting talks here and there. That's the best way I can describe. But I usually join their Discord because they showcase their movies and stuff here and there, and I just kind of like enjoy watching them and kind of like going to a social circle and saying that, okay, let's watch a movie or something like that. And they decided to go to a roulette and of Christmas specials, and one in particular that caught my attention is none other than the Jack Benny's Christmas Shopping, which is basically a kind of like part of the Jack Benny show. So in ways, I am sorry that I have absolutely no knowledge of Jack Benny. I don't know exactly who he is. I never watched the show, so I don't exactly know about it. But watching that Christmas special, it was kind of like one of the funniest things I have ever seen. And I don't even know the guy. But man, that I just crack out laughing of this one. This is a special kind of. I don't exactly remember what year it was made, but it was in the early age of television when everything was in black and white, and see the boys, and while they explain me that Jack Benny is this comedian who actually plays a kind of like a persona in his comedy act, where he kind of plays this stingy, cheap kind of guy who, well, let's say that he's kind of like the 50s Mr. Krabs or something like that. And then I can see why the guy who had his kind of like his popularity during his time, because this special, my God, and it's mostly about him doing his Christmas shopping, and he just wants to give someone a wallet that, well, he was kind of reluctant because it cost like $40. A very, very expensive wallet. Very expensive wallet, especially considering inflation during that time. And most of the special is basically him making demands to the shop clerk, which is played by Mel Blanc, and driving him insane. In which, first of all, he's like, "Hey, here it is. I want a gift wrap or something like that. Oh, let me write a card or something like that." And then of course Mel Blanc takes it. He just wrap it up, and then Jack Benny's like, you know what? Did I put him something like that? Hey, excuse me. I want to get the card back because I think I misspelled something like that. I'm not gonna go exactly what it is, but almost every single time he has kind of like a reason to change the card, and it drives Mel Blanc crazy because he's like, sir, I wrapped the whole thing. I sent it for delivery, and Jack Benny insisted and say, no, you're gonna take it. And he just and Mel Blanc is like, okay, give me that. Here it is. I'm wrapping. I'm gonna wrap it again. What do you want? Why are you wrapping? And the poor Mel Blanc can't say anything because well, the customer is always right. So it brings down kind of like this comedy, and the whole. It cracks me up, the whole Mel Blanc reaction, and you can tell that his inner Looney Tune is gonna escape from his mouth. Of course, then we got other small subplots that happen here and there. For example, one friend is trying to get another gift. Another one, he is he goes into Santa's lab. I don't know exactly kind of like the name of the character. Another one sings Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And of course, Jack Benny gonna sees other guys. Like, for example, he gets conned by a woman who said that, hey, I got this watch, and you can. This watch is basically unbreakable, but it can break. Probably one of my favorite jokes is like Jack Benny says that, I need to get some jewelry, and then a jewel thief just comes by and he say, oh, you're looking for a jewelry? It's over there. And of course, the shop manager who goes like, yes, in a creepy manner. But still, the biggest highlight is the whole Mel Blanc thing, in which the whole thing ends really dark. It's really dark. It is so dark, but it's so hilarious. In which nowadays, the way how it ends, it will never hold up in this day and age. But you know what? It was hilarious. But let's say that everything was all for nothing, and Mel Blanc is pushed to his limit. That moment, it was like, whoa, and got me laughing. And because of that, I was thinking that I should show this to everyone and make people know about it. I'm gonna probably show it to my own circle of friends eventually, but that was something good to pass by, and I had to mention it at least here.
You think you've heard all the Christmas stories there are to hear, right? But odds are even those of you thoroughly schooled in Christmas storyology haven't read about this story in any book or heard it sung about in any song. No, sir, not this tale, for this is the story of Santa's most precious prized possession.
Where's the sack?
Someone stole Santa's sack!
I stole Santa's sack. And he'll never get it back.
Come on, we only have 5 days to find the sack.
Hello, Karad, evil minion, center of the earth. Any of that sound familiar?
Ow! Now say you're sorry.
You're sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
Apology accepted.
We just have to find Santa's sack.
Ding, 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 you are correct. What does she win? Nothing. Sorry.
And it seems Santa was able to make her Christmas wish come true after all.
Ho, 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 ho! Merry Christmas!
Let's finish this Christmas special with probably an oddball. I normally try to leave usually either the best one of the list or the most odd of the list for last. And I thought that this year it will be perfect for me to end up with Christmas is Here Again. This one, I actually have kind of like an interesting history about it. Not many people talk about it. So, to the point that, here's the curious thing. During my childhood, when this movie came out, well, not exactly childhood, I was actually in my college years. Yeah, I live in Ecuador, and still cable television was in it. We had our box, but my family, you know, we were kind of like the middle class kind of guys, and which we have to be, you know, saving some things. And they afforded cable TV, but it's mostly the basic channels, because the premium services they always included, you know, even the international channels like ABC, NBC, CBS, and all that stuff. But we were managing with that. But our cable company always had the tradition that during the holiday season, usually Christmas and New Year, they always bring the premium services to everyone. Even if you're not paying the premium services, you're gonna get all the all the channels for a limited time. It's almost like their own Christmas gift. It was kind of like great because that gave me an opportunity to watch the international shows, especially in English. During that specific year, while flipping my channel, I saw kind of like this animated show that something kind of attracted me about the art style, the character, and how it was going, but I was like, what is that? The movie in question, of course, is Christmas is Here Again. And then, of course, I didn't have the time to watch it completely. When I came back, it was gone. I didn't even remember what it was. And then an internet reviewer kind of put a little bit into light about it, and I was like, hey, I remembered that. But then it kind of disappeared again until I remember it this year. So this Christmas special is that it was almost like an alien that you see, you know that it existed. And now I think it is a good time to bring it to light, because I finally managed to find a copy of DVD from a local library. And you know what? It's not perfect, but I can say some good things about this special. And for an oddity, you can tell that it does some good things about it. So, for starters, it is an animated movie. 74 minutes. It kind of has this kind of like a 2000 style of storytelling and humor and all this stuff. So there are some moments in which you're gonna say, "Oh, this is a little bit too millennial for your liking," but they tried. Some of the animation, you can tell that they have their limit from being a flash animation. It's not but it works on its advantage on how it is, because some of the imagery is really good. It's really beautiful, and it really looked like a graphic design Christmas postcard come to life. As for the story itself, well, let's say that it is a Christmas story that probably Kirk Cameron may come up with. So basically, the story is that it is Christmas and Santa Claus is preparing for the annual gift giving, but suddenly his sack where he gets the gifts, it gets stolen. It gets stolen by this kind of like this black coal mining guy. What was the name of the guy? Let me see an evil villain named Crad. It was kind of like a black guy with a trollish nose and a robe and all that stuff. He stole the Santa Claus sack. But unfortunately, that sack is so special that Santa Claus gets depressed. He couldn't find it despite his effort, and we didn't get Christmas for 30 years. And so everyone gets kind of like angry and depressed. And then the story shifts on this little girl named Sofiana, who is this orphan who is crippled, and she always has to walk with a walking stick. And she's very nice, but she hates her life in the orphanage because she has a very stick in the mud kind of representative, and of course she gets unintentionally his peers out of trouble. Sorry about that. I don't know why they come into it. She gets bullied and all this stuff. She even befriends a caterpillar. That is until one day she freezes an elf who was looking for the sack, and then they go to see Santa Claus, and they find out why the sack is irreplaceable, which I'll get to that, and then it kind of turns into a journey to recover Santa Claus' sack in order to bring back Christmas. And yeah, in a way, that kind of sounds a little bit kind of like epic. And you know what? For some reason, it also reminded me that there is a manga that it also takes a little bit that thing, but a little bit different. I mean, what happened in the world if they kind of lose the Santa Claus thing? Also, by the way, that Santa Claus manga that I'm talking about is actually made by the creator of Beastars, and it's called Sanda, I believe. But back to Christmas is here again. I mean, you might not find anything bonkers from what I'm telling you, but here's the thing that kind of gets bonkers, and this is where it kind of comes out like this is something that can come up with from the mind of Kirk Cameron. Is the importance of that sack. She even asked the question, okay, why Santa Claus can't make another sack? I mean, what's so important about that sack? Here's the bonkers reason. That sack. It's not just any sack. The blanket is actually the blanket that wrapped baby Jesus. I am not kidding. The blanket is the same blanket that wrapped baby Jesus. And so that blanket, then it turns into a sack. And the gifts that goes inside is used to bring the joy of gifts to the people. That is the most. And you thought that the Jesus analogy on the 1959 Santa Claus Mexican movie was bonkers. And this one also tries too hard to put the Christianity thing. Although it comes a little bit kind of like shallow in this movie compared to the Santa Claus one, because that one you can see that it comes up more of people that they trying to make a storybook story. Although not everything fails, like I said, because first of all you have kind of like a nice set of characters. I like for example, the little girl Sofiana. She's a good character. She's not exactly kind of like she could have taken the easy way out, because, oh, well, we have to feel sorry for her because she's disabled. But it showcased also a little bit of growth to her, even though for a Christmas special, they took a little bit kind of like more like the basics. Other character, if, for example, there is the elf that she saved, who's kind of like the most reluctant with them all because he kind of complains. Then they also befriend this little reindeer named Dart. He is basically the son of, who it is, just in case? Prancer, the grandson of Prancer, the reindeer. And then, of course, they also meet a bear and a polar bear and a fox, who technically, let's say that the bear is like the guy, and of course the fox is kind of like, sly. And of course we got the villain, who is kind of like Crag, I think it was called. Yes, Crag. Crag is, like I said, he's kind of like this guy in Hooded he's basically kind of like the guy who gives coal to children. But unfortunately, Santa Claus said he wanted to stop that. He gets out of the job and he wants to make revenge. And there's kind of like a little bit of an interesting lore in which Crag actually picks up really, really naughty children and then turn them into creatures that to help him in the coal mines and all this stuff. And, well, he just steals the sack because he's evil. He's evil. This goes this goes also into the territory that, first of all, we got kind of like this huge cast, and let me name you most of them. For example, Sofiana, the main girl, she's voiced by Madison Davenport. The angry elf is Daniel Roebuck. The little reindeer Dart is played by Colin Forth. The fox is Norm Macdonald, and the bear is Brad Garrett. The villain is actually played by Ed Asner. We got Kathy Bates there also as the orphan representative. Shirley Jones and Mother Claus, and Andy Griffith is the Santa Claus on this one. And of course, the narrator is none other than Jay Leno. So they have this huge cast, I'll say. And well, the music, I'll say some of them are fine, but this is one of those occasions in which the villain song is actually the one that is the lamest. And some of the pacing can go a little bit here and there. Some of the 2000 humor doesn't sit very well, and you can tell that they're also kind of miss some detail. Like for example, if I was kind of like a little bit more picky on the details of animation, I will say that there are some instances in which they kind of forget that Sophiana is supposed to be crippled, so they didn't limit too much, her movement of animation, which it could be hard. But nevertheless, this is kind of like a flawed rarity of a movie that in itself it becomes charming, and I think that many people should see it. It's because you can tell that it has some well intention, and for what it is and what it accomplished, I can say that I can give it an applause, and it is charming enough to make us feel ready to see that Christmas is here again. So, well, that's all I have to say about the Christmas season. I just hope that you like my special vlog about it that I do almost every year. Probably next year, depending on how I'm feeling, maybe I'm gonna change a little bit my tune on how I'm gonna present all those Christmas. Maybe I'm gonna shorten it up to not, limit myself to 12. But we'll see. We'll see. But in the meantime, have a Merry Christmas. Good afternoon.